Live from Peabody Place in downtown Memphis. This is News Channel 3 Live at 9 with Alex Coleman and Mary Beth Conley.
And we talk about the identities of Generation X and how that age group views morality as well as self-respect.
You're watching News Channel 3 Live at 9 with Alex Coleman and Mary Beth Conley.
And welcome back to News Channel 3 Live at 9 on this Monday. You know, we hear so much about the baby boomer generation, baby boom this, baby boom that. There are at least 4 other generations, X, Y, the millennials, the boomerangs, that come after the baby boomers. And a day of dialogue this week at Ole Miss addresses their needs.
That it does. Dr. Eric Weber explains how these different age groups can identify with morality and self-respect during a day of dialogue this week at Ole Miss. The school will open its doors to the public for discussions on topics such as race, gender, generational identity, and equality. Doctor, welcome to Live at 9. Glad to have you here this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
The challenging part of this, as we all know, sometimes a dialogue is not the easiest thing to have, just that conversation. But you really want to put some focus on things such as self-respect and morality. Do they go hand in hand? How do they come together?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. So basically what we have in America in general is a focus on liberty for each individual, and that's very important to people. And yet, when some people act with their own interests in mind only, they sometimes affect other people who are in similar situations to them. For instance, when a woman in a certain period would make a statement about the right way to live, well, that was seen to have an effect on other women. Or similarly, today we hear about, unfortunately, talk about students who say when you do well in school, oh, well, you're acting white. And that has an effect on people and expectations. And while that may not be morality in the same way that we legislate about when it comes to things like murder, well, it is something which harms other people, according to a number of scholars who've written about this issue. And so what we want to talk about in my session at the Day of Dialogue at the University of Mississippi is the fact that there are many identities, and we know this well in Mississippi. There are identities that are put upon us that have negative consequences for our lives. And so these are the things we want to talk about. How can we contribute to shaping these identities and to avoiding the negative consequences we can have on others?
Was it also important to have this discussion, dialogue, especially during Black History Month? And as we all know, what's been in the news down at Ole Miss concerning, you know, mascots, songs, you know, the attempt
some of the old symbols.
Yeah, some of the old symbols of segregation, racism, as some people perceive.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely right. These are some of the reasons why this is an absolutely very good time for this to happen. Now, the Day of Dialogue idea sprang up actually at the University of Montana, where the differences involved that people really wanted to have come to the table and talk to one another, the different groups, were primarily Caucasians and Native Americans. Well, the idea came to the University of Mississippi with Dr. Johnny Lott, who's at the Center for Teaching Excellence, and students actually are the ones who wanted to pull this into Black History Month and really make it a part because of precisely the reasons you mentioned.
So rather than Native Americans and Caucasians, we have Caucasians and African Americans and trying to dialogue there.
As well as many other groups.
But do you also go generation to generation? Because there's a tension between, you know, we mentioned baby boomers. There are some in the younger generations that sort of feel like it's time for baby boomers to begin to exit the stage. And baby boomers aren't going anywhere. So there seems to be a little generational tension as well. Are you going to address that as well, like between the millennials and maybe the Gen X's, who are a good 20 years older?
Absolutely. And so one of our concerns is that the identities of yesterday in some cases are around in certain respects that we may or may not want to preserve. And so these are the issues that we need to debate and talk about. What are the traditions and the identities, especially at Ole Miss, that are going to help our students and help our state and help our country, versus those identities and traditions and cultures that hurt us and that keep us from some of the important changes that need to happen.
What needs to exit the stage?
That's right. That's right. And so, well, this is what we're going to talk about. I'm not deciding for anybody.
Right.
But I'll be
Well,
leading
that's kind of cool. And the
I'll be leading
students
a
get to
discussion.
discuss.
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
not teacher-led. Not
Well,
professor.
the teachers are going to talk about some ideas and then start a dialogue off with a direction. But actually, faculty will be joined by students in leading the discussions and taking questions and directing that.
Do you perceive this as being a real sense of openness though? Because a lot of people will want to come to something like this and say, I don't know if I should kind of speak out or really speak my mind and really share whatever thoughts I might have, because that other person might see things differently. What are you hoping for?
I'm actually hoping for an awful lot of discussion, and we'll see what happens, but so far in my experience, I find that when you ask the right questions, you can't keep people from talking. that you really want to get people to focus on some sensitive issues. If you bring up things like what you mentioned, the song, which we had conflict about recently, or the new mascot, well, you get people talking very quickly. And the question is, what is it about our identities, our histories, that we really want to make sure we preserve, and what is it that perhaps needs some updating, and what kind of conflicts arise when we do precisely that? And I wanted to mention that 2 students have been instrumental in making this happen, by the way, because faculty had expressed an interest in the past, but these students are the reason this is really happening. And those are a fellow named Arter Rogers, who is the exiting Associated Student Body president, and another is Melissa Cole, who is one of the co-founders of One Mississippi, which I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's a wonderful student group that's doing a lot to promote unity within Mississippi across those differences we have.
And leading the way for all the other states.
Yes, ma'am.
Mississippi is not the only one with problems.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Doctor, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
23rd is the day. It's Wednesday at the University of Mississippi, Overby Center. It's free and open to the public, and they want everybody to come and everybody to talk.
Open up. Speak your mind.
There you go.
It's time for a change.
I love that.
All right.